Book 1, Law of Salimi, Chapter 43, titled Cultivating the Passion for Knowledge.
This led to a 5 to 10-fold increase in the electricity generated.
Looking at the students at private college Ampang branch, I would see myself in every one of those students when I was 17 years old. Except most of them do not have specified goals in life. It seemed to me that most of the students at Ampang branch just needed the right guidance and motivation in order to unleash their true potential and abilities in life. Every class that I teach would begin with a talk about intention and reason for them at being at the Ampang branch. I tried my best to develop the passion for knowledge and learning in their hearts. I began unlocking their motivation to be successful in academic performance. I tried my best to cultivate the passion for knowledge in their heart. I did my duties to teach the students the syllabus subject, but my paramount objective was to ensure that the students becomes a better human being and utilize their full potential into achieving the best academic result possible. I never believed that anyone was born with a certain limit in their abilities and talents. The only limit that had ever existed in anyone, including myself, would simply be the mental limit that we set on ourselves. Essentially, every person was capable to achieve the best potential that they desired. They can break their limitation if they so wish. I motivated and inspired my students, which, if you, the reader, were one of my students, I really do trust in your talents, and I never lied in everything that I had ever said to become the best student that they could be. In fact, I always challenged them to beat my record of academic performance. I really wished that they would one day become a better person than I ever was, while at the same time, the other part of me would never allow that to ever happen by striving for continuous improvement and enhancement of my own talents and abilities. For me, 2 hours for each class was never enough time for me to spend in order to motivate my students to be the best human being possible. I always told them if I had 3 days straight to speak about inspiration and motivation, I probably had much more left, even after talking for 3 straight days with my students. Furthermore, I believe that the best way to speak about motivation and inspiration was by simply not speaking, but instead implement them into my action. If you ask my students whenever they see me on my way to class, I rarely walk, and most of the time I ran to class while climbing the stairs. As I had previously explained, I am truly passionate about learning, knowledge, and teaching. I would be happy just to be able to do so without being paid. My students knew how much I hated holidays because I was unable to teach my students. One significant sign that my student had embraced the passion of learning and knowledge would be easily identified by their eyes that were brimming and shining with the light of hope and passion during every class. Frankly speaking, no one could fake this signature and attributes because it was absolutely obvious and apparent. In effect, in a class of 50 students, I would normally see around 3 to 5 students who had these shining eyes filled with passion for knowledge. The second sign would be a drastic increase in curiosity and inquisitiveness attribute, which can be seen by asking a lot of questions to quench their thirst for knowledge. In most cases, the knowledge could either be about the subject during class or any other question about anything on this earth or beyond. The second sign is also cannot be feigned by anyone, because you can see if the questions were purely because the students were passionate about learning something new. Third sign of being passionate about learning and knowledge would be an increase in the students' cognitive prowess, which can be seen through the development of skills, talents, and abilities in their life. In addition, most cases of embracing passion for learning and knowledge would result in a huge increase in academic performance or their CGPA result. Most students Most cases of my students who had embraced the passion of learning and knowledge eventually became the best student in their class, program, or even the whole institution or education, such as the private college of Ampang branch. Several of my earliest students who embraced the passion of learning and knowledge managed to maintain 3.5 and above CGPA, who had instigated suspicion by other lecturers that I was helping them by providing answers or cheating to help improve their results. However, it was evidently clear that the students were truly passionate about knowledge by learning because they managed to score at times almost 4.0 CGPA when learning from other lecturers. It indicated that I never lied, cheated, or helped any student in any way that was against the teachings of Islam. From my vast experience with amazing lecturers as well as horrendous ones had made me to behave in a fair and just manner to anyone, including any students, lecturers, or simply anyone in my life. The only issue was the fact that I do not have absolute control over any student, which meant that I do not force anyone to embrace the passion of learning and knowledge. The only person who can embrace the passion of learning would be the individual on their own willingness and decision making. As a result, I only managed to inspire and cultivate the passion of knowledge to a small number of students, such as around less than 5 students in a crowd of 50 students. Nonetheless, I was given about 7 subjects to teach when I began my life at Ampang branch. Later, it was reduced to 6 subjects. I had no issues at all with the heavy burden of teaching hours because I love teaching students at Ampang branch. Instead of implementing the traditional method of reading from a textbook with students, while students copied them, Instead of implementing the traditional method of reading from a textbook, while students copied them in their notes, I applied my most advanced tactics and strategies developed during my studies for diploma and degree program. I prepared 1 page per chapter notes for every subject that I teach. In every class, I would give something like 12 pages notes, which were the summary of the textbook. Students were encouraged to add their own words to improve their understanding and extremely encouraged to ask questions during classes. I also gave my handphone number and email address to enable them to ask questions and set up appointments to discuss any sections that they need further explanation outside of the class. By doing so, I made learning extremely easy for students, which induced their desire to really learn something new and at times become passionate for learning and knowledge. By implementing this method, I managed to go through every chapter with haste at approximately 30 minutes to an hour, while having an extra hour to discuss anything ranging from the subject we had learned to anything under the sun and beyond. There was no taboo question because it encouraged the student to discover how amazing this world is through learning and knowledge. I implemented a standard 30-second quizzes to ensure the students were studying the notes before classes. As time goes, some students only needed 10 seconds to answer the quizzes. It showed their improvement and passion towards learning and knowledge. They allowed students to be focused and be brave enough to learn because subjects and notes were very simple and easy to learn. In terms of attendance, I utilized using Excel program to record students' attendance to each classes and it compute automatically their percentage of attendance. It was much more reliable compared to signing on a piece of paper, which were prone to error, mistake, and cheating by students intentionally signing on behalf of their friends, even though they were absent. As time goes by, my students were showing amazing academic improvement, which was undeniable by any other lecturer. I also joined any activities and program with my students or other students that I never had a chance to teach. This is one example of the program which I joined, where most of these were students of mine, and some were students from different field of teaching. So I tried my best to motivate and inspire them into becoming the best human being and the best performing students to achieve the highest CGPA result. Everything that I do and teach at Ampang branch were not done to gain any monetary gains or any awards. Nonetheless, it was rather suspicious when students' improvement were not being considered as achievement, while other lecturers were being awarded with as the best lecturer. Even though I was not pursuing for such award, it seemed that my effort and achievement as a lecturer appeared to be ignored. Since I had no proof, and considering I was still a new lecturer at Ampang branch, I just kept my silence, but I tried to be more aware and conscious about my surrounding. As time goes on, I began to realize that whenever there were there were programs and events for lecturers to participate, it seemed as if I was always being given to do the events events where other lecturers were not interested or rather refused to go to. Moreover, for activities that were highly desired, it seemed that I had never received any opportunity for me to even being considered. As more time passes by, this suspicion became much more apparent when even newer lecturers were selected to attend awards event. While I was never received such offer, considering I managed to teach every subject that other lecturers can't, I helped with the tasks that were abandoned by other lecturers and cannot be performed by them. My students managed to sustain very good CGPA result. I developed notes and questions for new subjects while my well-established subjects were simply given to new lecturers, and many other issues that started to become more obvious with time. Soon, new lecturers who were given only 2 subjects were allowed to refuse and only teach 1 subject while being paid much more than my salary, while being paid much more than my salary when I was teaching 6 subjects. A part of that, I began to realize that even difficult subjects were given to me so that I could develop the complete notes and final examination question, which I did without fail for every semester, where later were passed to new lecturers who were paid more than me. Furthermore, I had helped several lecturers to teach their classes when they were unable to explain the topic effectively, was awarded as the Best Lecturer Award at Ampang branch while I was never even invited to attend. Come on, something was amiss. Something must have been going on when my work productivity were among the best and highest, as well as my teaching method with students were considered to be among the best at Ampang branch, yet I did not receive even the invitation to any award event after about 3 years at Ampang branch. I do not mind about making a very low salary even when compared to new lecturers, but the fact that I sense that I was mistreated and being unfairly exploited were the biggest issue that I cannot handle in my life. To some extent, the lecturers who were chosen for Best Lecturer Awards felt something was amiss when they received my help to teach their classes, and I was never been invited to the awards event after being at Ampang branch for 3 years. It seemed very dubious when even new lecturers were able to attend such award event. It seemed someone had done something to ensure that I was never to experience any form of recognition, regardless of my work productivity or achievements. It seemed that my efforts were only to be truly appreciated by my students, who managed to embrace the passion of knowledge and enabled to achieve great academic results. In effect, receiving no recognition from my peer made me felt ignored and outcasted. The experience was similar to my upbringing, where I was not considered as part of the other students. It seemed to suggest that I do not belong to the group of lecturers at Ampang branch. Even being surrounded by numerous lecturers, I do not feel the sense of belonging to them as part of the group. It seemed that no one could see me standing there in the room filled with other lecturers. I was all alone while being surrounded by others who cannot see me. Maybe it was just the challenge for me who chose to walk the path of a scholar. One who strives to walk the difficult path of pursue learning, knowledge, and teaching without the expectation to receiving any recognition by others except Allah the All-Knowing. It might be possible that everything that has happened to me so far was simply a test given by Allah the Almighty. It was to test whether I was ready to truly embrace Islam as a way of life, or it might suggest that I must pursue more knowledge to fill up my chest and my heart. It might be I might need to sharpen my mind so that I no longer desire even the slightest recognition from anyone at all. Maybe I was just failing the challenge that had been set for me for the last 3 years. Maybe I was not ready to be walking the path of a scholar. Or it might be possible that I had never even started walking the true path of the scholar after all these years. Maybe the private college was not meant for me to stay for a long period of time, but simply observe the issues and unfair practices in the real life environment. I should consider towards improving myself through a new journey for pursuing knowledge at a new place, where fairness and justice prevail. Maybe I should reconsider my path towards becoming a scholar based on teachings of Islam. I uphold truth and justice in my life. I embrace fairness and equality to all human beings. When unjust and unfair practice entered into my life, I was unable to accept that situation or working environment. There were nothing that I could do about it to change other than the fact that I move on to other institutions of learning or probably pursue more knowledge to improve myself. Those suspicions of unfair working environment had triggered my desire to move forward with my life. So I began to research opportunities for learning at master's and PhD program at other universities. With that, it ends this chapter, and hope to hear you again for the next one in chapter 44. Thank you very much for listening, and see you again in the next video. Thank you for listening. See you soon.